All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. So, I've got my fellow nerd friends here, and we're gonna do another. And I am Andrew, aka Adar slash Orc Father Mindgasms, and we've got the MITHRIL Centrist, aka the Woke Centrist, aka Dusty Cubes, aka Dustin Cubit, and we've got Tristram Johnson, aka Mask, and we're gonna, of course, talk about episodes 4 and 5 of the new Lord of the Rings of Power show, and talk about how I still endlessly hate the Harfoots, but about what seems like the cool brewing war between the Numenoreans and Adar, the dark elf orc father, and this all this stuff to do with the MITHRIL and the King of the Elves deceiving both Elrond and Durin as to Elrond's true purposes and his visit. And yeah, I guess just to kind of do a concise analysis of my own thoughts in episode 4 and 5, I think episode 3 is still my favorite. I like some of the stuff that happens in episode 4, especially when orcs are chasing Arondir and Bronwyn, and we see that stuff with her son getting connected to that magical object that seems to be connected to Sauron. And I like some of the stuff in episode 5 too, but episode 3 was just more exciting to me. I think partially because of the introduction of the Numenoreans and stuff. And yeah, I would say that those are my basic thoughts on episode 4 and 5 in comparison to 3. So let's start off with you, Tristram. What do you think about episodes 4 and 5 in comparison to 3? And do you like episode 4 or 5 more than the other?
Um, I think I liked episode 4 possibly the most, but that might have just been the lack of Harfoots.
Yeah. 3 and 4 don't have Harfoots.
like and like my favorite storylines got more time, and I was totally up for that. Like I would, if I was doing the story, there would be no Harfoot storyline, because I just think there's already maybe almost too many storylines as it
Yeah.
is. But I really like Elrond and Durin, their friendship. I think that political struggle is probably my most engaging character stuff. The struggles that they have is in these episodes are, I feel, quite legitimate. I know some people don't like the acting, but I like the acting of both of those characters. And so I really liked 4. I think 4 is probably my favorite so far, though 3 and 5 were both better than 1 and 2.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of the acting of Elrond and Durin, but I think after the first 5 episodes, I like Durin's acting a little bit more, but I still am not really that much of a fan of the actor who plays Elrond's acting. But yeah, I like what is happening with their storyline more now than I did before, especially with all the political machinations and that kind of thing. And yeah, I think we said we were all agreed before that the Harfoots is the worst storyline. I think probably my favorite storyline is everything that's happening with Galadriel and the Numenoreans now and Halbrand and that kind of stuff.
Halbrand.
But yeah, he is. So how about you, Dusty? What do you think about 3 in comparison to 4 and 5?
Kind of the same. The we do see a clamping down on the plot. It's way more focused, which is a good and bad thing, because when it's more focused, then we have more expectations about what's going to happen. I think the thing that's good about the Harfoots is it's still kind of ambiguous on what their relevance is. Like, there's still a bit of mystery with them about how they're going to contribute to this plot. I don't know. I know it seems meandering right now, but at least when it comes to them, they're kind of like a wild card right now because I have no clue. I'm guessing they're going to have some type of significance to the overall story. I just don't know what that is right now.
Yeah. I think we were talking before in terms of the Harfoots about how it seems like so far their purpose is just to introduce that character of the stranger. Yeah. And
their vehicle.
I think I don't remember which one of you guys said it last time, but I think you might be right that they might wait until the end of the season to actually reveal his true identity, because they're still not doing that. One thing that was cool in episode 5 was that they showed that he used his power against those wargs. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he used his powers, and then it caused him damage.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went into a trance that inadvertently hurt the young Harfoot girl. Yeah, so
she interfered. That's why she got hurt.
Yeah.
It wasn't hurting her what he was doing until she decided to, I'll just shove my hand into this ice.
This ice that's magic, this water that's magically turning into ice through clear magic powers. I'm just gonna touch it.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, because I think the biggest problem she had is because he had zero reaction to her hand getting iced over. It's kind of obvious to us that he was like in a trance state and was totally like focused on what he was doing. But I can see he meant no harm. It's kind of her own curiosity that caused her that issue. It's not really a malevolent
100%.
intent. But she took it as like, I'm scared. Well, as from what they left it at, it looks like she was like scared. Like after he broke out of his little trance, which I'm guessing he was just trying to repair himself in some way.
Absolutely.
He went to her and she was like totally scared of him.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what's going to happen there.
Yeah, but I think that's fairly it was a little annoying, like those storylines are like whatever, but I do think that's quite realistic. Like her character has been set up as exactly that she doesn't look after her, she doesn't think, she blunders ahead into things, and she gets Wise or Harfoot's in trouble. Like when she goes off and she isn't looking for the wolf, or when she pulls her little mate in behind her and all these stupid things that she does. But because of that, she's the only one who could be the person who discovers him, right? Because she's the only one who would risk it because she is a psychopath.
Right.
So her doing that stupid thing is totally in character. Him not fully understanding how his own power works and not understanding how she interacts with him is also in character for him, for what I was established. And I also liked it because it was in theme with the plot for them for this episode, not just their overarching plot, but the plot for this episode is he dangerous? And they have that conversation. Actually, I think it's a very good conversation where he's like, he gets her to explain or to try and explain what peril or danger is. And then she's like, things that can kill you. And he doesn't really understand what killing is or what death is.
And he says, I am peril.
Yeah, but he establishes that. He's like, people think I'm dangerous. So what you're saying is I am that. And then she's like, no, you're not. No, you're not. And he's like, maybe I am. And he mentions that when he used the fireflies, they died. And she's like, yeah, it wasn't your fault. And then what's happened at the end of the episode is exactly that again. He's used his powers and accidentally someone on the edge has been harmed. And this time it's her, not a firefly. And so now she's having to grow up a little bit and think, and that is causing her that would cause genuine fear. Even though she brought it upon herself, she has maybe come close. That might have been close to death. We don't know how close she was to dying there. And that can make anyone reevaluate their choices. I hope we see some character growth. I think we are already seeing his character grow. I'd like to see hers do a bit of growth. And often these stories that are aimed at younger audiences, often a young girl going off to find out the world, their curiosity is just paid off all the time. Like, you were right to doubt the patriarchy, or not the patriarchy, like whatever the culture is. Yeah, you needed to break out of that, Hunger Games or Divergent or whatever it is. It's like, stick it to the man. there very rarely seems to be a thing of, see, actually sometimes being curious and trying new things does just genuinely get you hurt, and actually just doing that recklessly actually has a downside as well as an upside. And I'd like to see a little bit of that in her storyline, so I'm okay with it. I don't think her acting is the greatest on the show, but I don't think
neither.
But I don't think it's terrible, and so I think maybe she's overdone it in both directions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking too. If they do wait until the end of the season to reveal the true identity of the stranger, I think that would be okay, because then it can keep us guessing and maintain the suspense of that for the whole season. And I was telling you guys about how I've been reading Unfinished Tales, and they actually name some of the Ishtari or the other wizards, so it could be any of those, or Gandalf or Sauron. And you were saying too that it could be Radagast too. Yeah, and it reminded me too that it was cool that I just saw in Unfinished Tales they mentioned the character of Adar right before I watched episode 4, so I knew that it was that the identity that wasn't quite revealed at the end of episode 3, that was going to be some other servant of Morgoth rather than Sauron. And I do think it's pretty cool that they made him a dark elf and the father of the orcs. I think that's really cool what they did with that character.
I agree. And I'm very excited to see where they take it. I think like now that we've got a bit more of the plot, like actually, Andrew, how do you want to like form this? Our episode? Are we just talking about 4 and 5 as one, or did you want to go one or the other, or did you want to go and split it by characters, plot? How do you want to do it?
We can talk about 4 and 5 together.
Okay.
And I guess just go in terms of the characters and what is happening with their characters in the plot.
All right. So do you want to go by the different arcs? So do you want to talk about so where do you want to start? Numenor, the orcs, the Harfoots, or the dwarves and the elves?
Let's go with the Harfoots first. Go with the worst first and save the best for last.
So
sounds like we already pretty much wrapped them up for the most part.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we
because they didn't have a presence in the 4th episode. Yeah, we basically talked about everything that happened.
Yeah,
but it does look like I guess one of the things that we didn't discuss is it looks like the rest of the Harfoots are souring on the stranger, and it sounds like one of them is like plotting to get them like
left behind.
Because they think the stranger is causing the misfortune of when they're visiting this place that was once, fruitful and bountiful. Now they come back and it looks like a spooky wood out of like The Hobbit. And
I think that it seems to me like that's maybe something that's actually the increasing of the darkness from the upcoming return of Sauron. And it's I think also that this is kind of connected to how the elf king thinks that the dwarves the dwarves finding the MITHRIL it contains the light of the Valar, so basically getting them to getting all as much MITHRIL from them as they can is the only way to save the light of the Valar in the elves. But I think they're confused about that too, and they think that and they don't realize that it's actually the upcoming increase in darkness of the return of Sauron that's corrupting the light of the Valar too.
Yeah, I really hope that they don't go with the whole MITHRIL can save elves line. I hope that's a misunderstanding. But anyway, MITHRIL never loses its luster. But I think there's 2 things we still need to touch on with the Harfoots. So that storyline there about the one that you touched on already, that the world is dying, but the woman who is like, let's take the wheels off their cart, basically, let's leave them to die. That was quite annoying I believe that people act like that, but one of the things is that her argument is so flawed because she's like, look at the bad things that can happen to us. Like, are we gonna risk having a widow or an orphan? Like saying, oh, we might have a death if we keep them. But clearly abandoning that family would be 4 deaths, like straight up. So like you're saying, let's hopefully prevent a death by leaving them to die.
Yeah. That's a weird contradiction that they get into. I think it was in episode 2 where they have the Harfoots have this mantra, we never leave anyone behind, and yet in the same episode their kind of leader reads a long list of names of people who have gotten left behind.
I think the idea is that they fell behind. You're not supposed
to.
But the thing is, she uses a phrase that sounds like it's like an official phrase, like we need to take the wheels off. Like it's like a thing, as in like almost like a punishment that we can do. So if there is such a phrase, then it's been done before. And also, like, they think the stranger's so dangerous. How do they think that when they go over and like take the wheels off the cart he's pushing, how do they think he's going to react? Do you think he's just going to sit there and go, "Oh, you go there, little Harfoots," or is he going to go, boom, and blow you up? But also then he saves her life, because so she is there with Nori and the other girl. She is the other person who is saved. So that could go one of 2 ways. One is she's like, oh my goodness, he saved my life. He's like got to be okay. Or secondly, she goes, oh my goodness, I saw him use the evil power.
Yeah,
It's like definite.
Yeah, true.
But we haven't talked about something I think that we have to touch on before we go from that, which is the people in white.
That's who I was just thinking of, actually. Yeah, for sure.
So they find his birthplace.
Yeah.
I'm really confused about who these characters are even supposed to be, and we only have that really
elves of some sort, right?
I didn't see the elf ears.
Well, I know in the prologue we had some people. Remember when Galadriel was like a little girl?
Yeah.
There were some of those elves walking around that were similarly garbed. I thought they were kind of like the same elves, but that's what the impression I got was they're like some type of elves.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I really have no idea. They didn't seem like elves to me, but I'm really not sure who they're supposed to be. What do you think, Tristram?
They definitely tried to make them not look human. Like they definitely tried to make, like, when the guy looks at the camera, his like face is clearly meant to look different, which does implicate elf. But I don't know. This is a gap for me. I'm wondering if they're going to be other Maiar that they're going to try and bring in, because we've already talked about Maiar like the Balrog, and one of the things I really hope they're not doing this, but technically vampires are in Tolkien.
Oh, really? I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, they are in but they're like old lore. You know, like we're not talking Dracula vampires. We're talking like the blood drinker lore that's been around for thousands of years. But because that's what he pulled it from, and it's not a big deal. But it's just I wonder if what I'm saying is, I bring that up not because I really think that's what they're going with, but I can't see these guys being wizards. Like certainly not. They could be elves, but if so, what elves and why? Like, I can't see them being allied with Gil-galad. And did you look at their names in the credits?
No, I didn't. Did you?
Yes, I did. And they're not named. They're given titles instead, which I think shows that they totally knew this was going to be mysterious, and they want it to stay mysterious. So they call them like the aesthetic, and the dweller, the nomad, the aesthetic, and the dweller. So I'm like, but he had lots of things that were like spirits. So the Valar are the gods, and then the Maiar are like the angels or demons. And so things like the Balrog and Shelob, the original Ungoliant, and even Sauron are Maiar. They're all this like second tier. And I wonder if they will be, but there's quite a lot of this second tier of like superior spirits, like just above elves, but not Valar. And I'm wondering if they will be an order of them. I don't know though. And it could be something they've just entirely made up to add into the lore. But they obviously want it to be a super mystery. And it might be one of the things I can totally see happening. If I was this show's runners, I might go, this is going to be watched by some serious Tolkien geeks. Let's put in something that they can't figure out. Let's mix up something brand new to excite them and to add to the world. And I think maybe they just made them up, and we'll see what they do. But I think they've got to be something of Maiar-like power. They look magical to me. They definitely don't look like the face of that guy as he looks with his eyebrows makes me think they want you to say these aren't human. They want you to say that. They've covered their ears on purpose for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that would be cool. I hope that they didn't invent some new type of creature that's like some sort of Maiar, because there are already so many other interesting types of creatures that we haven't seen before. But they could do some sort of little interesting twist and fill in details that we don't know. Like when they mention Adar, for example, they don't say that he's a dark elf and the father of orcs, but that like those sort of things are things that actually existed in the Tolkien mythology. So it would make sense for a servant of Morgoth to be that. So they could feasibly do something like that with those characters too. What do you think about what they are you convinced that they are elves of some kind, Dusty, or do you think they might be some other kind of Maiar, or what do you think?
I don't know. They look like elves to me. Like,
okay,
I don't know. Like, they don't look like normal humans.
Correct.
They look very elvish in just the way that they dress. Like, I would recommend watching the opening prologue with Galadriel, like when she was a child, and I swear they're dressing basically like the same. So
okay.
Yeah, you'd have to. That's what the thing that I drew. It was like, oh, these are like those elves that were like watching the children in that prologue. So I don't know. I could be wrong though.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they're gonna do with those characters. All right. So do you guys want to talk about the storyline with Elrond and Durin next? Yeah. All right. Well, you go ahead and you go ahead and start off there, Tristram.
I really like unlike you, I quite like the Elrond actor, but I think their relationship is very good. They have basically he's uncovered the mystery. He now knows, and there's lies and counter lies, and so the thing that's good here is that Elrond has said in his own understanding everything he said is true, and Durin like outright lies to him, and then Disa, when he challenges her on it, lies to cover it up, and she does it in a way that I find quite believable and quite forthright. But Elrond doesn't fall for it, and he is an elf, so it's good that he doesn't fall for it, because elves are meant to have a very good understanding of this kind of thing. And so he goes and he observes, and he finds out that basically that the dwarves are hiding something from him. Doesn't know fully what, but he knows they're hiding something, and he confronts them with it. And Durin, to his credit, is prepared to reveal it, but he makes him swear an extremely serious oath. He's like, "Look, if I tell you this, you can't tell anyone else." And as soon as he said it, I thought, well, I would be saying to him, "What if my king asks me? Like, hello, is that like a thing? Like, if someone said to me, 'Promise you will never ever tell this to anyone,' I would always say, 'Well, let's just check here. You might not want to tell me, because I tell my wife pretty much everything. So if this is going to be something I'm going to keep from her, I'll need her say so before I agree not to share it.'" Like that kind of level of stuff, because there's some things you just got to be careful on. But obviously they want conflict, so they don't have them have those conversations, and they just have him make this incredibly sacred and deep oath. on his word. And we can tell that for Elrond, this is a big deal, and for Durin, it's a big deal.
Yeah,
So
that's totally in keeping with Tolkien in general too.
100%.
So I like that people in Middle Earth take oaths extremely seriously.
And again, it's the power of language, right? Because Tolkien had the world made through words, right, through song, and like Saruman's magic was his voice. Like he would say things and it could convince people and pull them in. Yeah. And so words having great power is incredibly Tolkien-esque. And so I love that. So he makes it feel, and he admits that they've discovered MITHRIL, the super ore that never ever loses its shine, that can be used in every single way. Though it isn't exactly clear how that's intending to like make the dwarves great again.
Yeah.
All we know is
and to quote Gimli from Fellowship of the Ring, light as a feather, but hard as dragon scales. And that's how Frodo ends up not dying when the cave troll stabs him in Moria.
Yeah, MITHRIL is the ultimate metal. And so, but like, I don't think it's ever been suggested what is later suggested by Gil-galad in episode 5, which is the continuation. So it seems like they've come through a rocky patch, but when he makes this promise to Durin actually gives him some, which implies incredible levels of trust, because now if he breaks his word, Durin can't deny it, because he's like literally handed over evidence to Elrond now, so that Elrond could not only break his word, but then prove that. So it's incredible amounts of trust, and they work it through. I find Disa and Durin's behavior very acceptable, completely normal. There's a cave-in, and so there's a bit of threat there, but everyone is safe, so it's quickly ended. But then that builds to episode 5, where a lot of that pays off. So of course, just like with Galadriel, Gil-galad is shown to know more than he is let on. And he basically is saying, I sent you to see if they had the special ore, because the Silmarils, which were 3 jewels, which is why the elves came to Middle-earth in the first place, which had the last of the light of the original trees, they were brought here, and they believed that some of the light of one of these Silmarils was in this tree. A Balrog and a great elf lord fought over it, and the power, that light, went down into the earth, into this ore, which is MITHRIL. That's the idea, and that's why it never loses its light. So he believes that with that, they can preserve the light of the elves. I'm hoping it's not that answer, but anyway, they've noticed that the trees are failing, and they're assuming that means it's the end of the Elven era, and they've got to go into the west. Let's go, because that's what they do in Elrond's era later, in the Third Age. That's exactly what happens. They realize the light is fading, and they go back to the Valar. They were banished, but hey, let's just ignore that. We're ignoring some things from Tolkien, so why not? But if that's the answer, like, that isn't death. That is going to the west, going back home to God, to heaven. So it's a bit
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't like that, but the fact that he doesn't break his oath, at least at first, really impresses me, because I thought he was going to put the pressure on. It's our entire race in the balance, so you have to. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to do that on a hope." I'm like, "Good for you." And he's like, "Oh, don't call hope little." I'm like, "No, don't be convinced." And he wasn't, which I liked. But then he goes to Celebrimbor and gives him the MITHRIL. And he goes, "Oh, I have to decide whether or not to break my oath." I'm like, "Are you kidding? You
already know." Like, and even with that conversation with Gil-galad, you can tell that Gil-galad pretty much knows. Like, he doesn't even have to tell him, really. But I like it. I like what they did with that oath, where they Gil-galad and Celebrimbor reveal that they've known this about the MITHRIL all along, and that was the true reason that they sent Elrond to see Durin, and that he literally has to choose between keeping his oath or basically they set it up as like the death of the elves in Middle Earth, basically, or them leaving Middle Earth forever, which isn't really that in keeping with what Tolkien said, as you said. And even though like basically Gil-galad and Celebrimbor already know anyway. But what they're trying to do there is interesting. I agree. Yeah.
But if this is legitimately the case, right, and you're Gil-galad and you're pretty sure they've got the mithril, then just ask.
Yeah.
You go to Durin and say, I know you got mithril, buddy. Because,
yeah.
because if Elrond tells you they've got mithril, then what are you going to do? You're going to go to Durin and say, I know you've got mithril. So if you already kind of know, why force him to betray his oath? Why not just go and ask? So how is his betraying his oath going to help you any more than what you already have? If you already, which it clearly you do, you have the word. You're talking about the or. Like, do they have the or? Well, go and ask him. I'm not going to tell you one way or the other. But you were at a table with him 20 minutes ago, and he's still in London. Like, you could even pull a Game of Thrones and just ambush him with all your guard while he's stuck in your place and hold him hostage until they give you the stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a bit annoying because I think the conversation with Celebrimbor is good, but it implies that basically he went and told Celebrimbor, which means he broke his word. And he's like, I wonder if I should break my word by telling you this thing that we're talking about. And so that was a bit foolish, and I think it undermined some of the other things. But I love the fact that he held his word, and I love the fact that then he goes to Durin and says, this is the fix I'm in. And Durin goes, all right. So he says it's your choice. And so Durin, recognizing that he's kept his word, goes, I'll make the choice and I'll make the right one. And you think, yeah. But then after Durin's agreed, they pan up to Gil-galad, looking over them, looking like, oh, dum, 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 dum. And like,
yeah.
But I'm like, but he just got what he wanted. So why would he be like, sinister? I've overheard that everything that is happening. So what? There's no secret there, Littlefinger. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, good comparison.
Anyway,
yeah.
So that annoyed me a little. But the actual plot points I liked. I just don't think they were necessarily done as well as they could have been.
Yeah. Well said. I agree. So what do you think about what happens with Elrond and Durin and Gil-galad and the elves in episode 4 and 5, Dusty?
Well, I guess we could reel it back to episode 4, because we forgot that Elrond was kind of spying on. He did, in fact, spy on Durin when he felt that there was some deception involved. Especially after he talked to his wife and she lied about like what he was doing. And we saw that she went and spoke to him, which would seem immediately after that scene. So he's like, yeah, something's going on. But I guess he has elf hearing too, because he heard the conversation. And they're like, oh, what are you doing here? I'm just on my way. So he knew something was up. He followed them and eventually, was filled in about what was going on. And I remember us speculating about what was going to be in the box. Was it going to be an Arkenstone? Was it going to be MITHRIL? So regarding MITHRIL and Durin's decision to help, I was like kind of surprised because of
I was too,
how Elrond was describing what would happen to the elves. I thought Durin would have just came back and said, oh, you're like us now. You guys have a lifespan and you guys don't get to live forever anymore. Yeah, because we know that was kind of like a contention a bit when they first met again, where they talked about how, a blink of an eye to an elf is like a lifespan for a dwarf or a human.
Yeah.
So I thought he was going to have less empathy about the elves losing their ability to live forever in Middle-earth. But I was like, okay, so he is kind of showing that he is a true friend, and he's going to go ahead and help out Elrond, with the cost of, stealing that table from Gil-galad.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that too. That was kind of funny that he made it seem like the table was sacrilege. So it turns out that he just took the table because his wife wants a new one.
But remember, it isn't just like elves in Tolkien's lore are not elves like in Warhammer or Dragonlance
No.
or Forgotten Realms. They're like a thing of eternity.
Mhm.
Like the other races are not them, and like it's one of the only things that lets me forgive like Galadriel being who she is in this show, and like when she just takes out like 6 guys on her own stuff, is because the elves are meant to be like the sun, like the wind, like a winter storm. They're eternal. They're unstoppable. They don't die. They don't age. They're beyond beautiful. They dream things that humans can't even do in the waking world. They're like elves are just amazing. They don't fall through snow. They defy gravity. Elves. And so what Durin's saying there is, do you want to bring an end to the most beautiful, most perfect thing that is currently existing in nature or not?
Mm-hmm.
And he's going, the prestige of my dwarf hold, all the money that we can make, the great wonders we might discover, is not worth ruining the last immortal thing on this world, the last bit of godhood we have. And remember, like, that Tolkien wrote Middle-earth as the elves have to leave, you see, so that we can have the world that we live in today. And the elves are the last true sign of the Valar. Imagine if we had people living today who were literally immortal. Like let's say there was like a couple of towns where just angels lived. Imagine what that would do. Imagine what that would do to theology in our world.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't like speculative, but there was at least a couple of towns where angels just hung out and were carefully they didn't interfere too much, but they're just there immortally living forever. It would be crazy. That's what Durin's had a chance to impact. That's why I'm not surprised.
I would say to you, Tristram, if you want to see that kind of interaction, and I'm not going to say modern because it's future. Like, what if humans could live forever, and what would the impact on theology would be? I'd actually suggest you check out the Altered Carbon TV show. First season. Yeah, because that is definitely one of the issues. Like, there is, like, how does this square with our relationship with religion?
I'm totally prepared to check out, because immortality is interesting. But the point is, it's not just that they're immortal; it is that they are literally from God. Like, so they're not immortal. These are like angels. These are people who have met God and like been sent by him. They've met the Valar. Like, Galadriel remembers the Valar. She spoke to them. Like, imagine that, because that's a different thing from just living forever. They are literally from God, remnants of his light, of their light, because there's not a singular God.
Yeah. They're basically divine in a way.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why it's hard to be friends with them, right? Because they're not really on our level. That's why it's hard for a human to be in love with one. Of course, you can adore one, like Gimli adores Galadriel, but Gimli has no illusion that they would be a couple. Like, he adores her like you would adore an angel. And and Tolkien, he got something there that you can reach at, but maybe not grasp, because I don't think we really have anything that is really like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but if you ever check out Altered Carbon, I would not suggest the book. The book is not for you.
Because it's too grimdark?
I'll check out the show.
It's not that it's too grimdark, it's like extremely sexually graphic.
Yeah.
It's basically like a porno book. Like, all the sex scenes are like extremely graphic.
Thank you for the advice. I'll check out the show.
Yeah,
the show's not even like.
There were a few parts in the first season of the show that are kind of like that too, but yeah, they're more graphic in the book.
No, they're like ridiculous. Like, it's probably the most outside of the other fantasy series I read. What was that Nevernight? Outside of
Oh, yeah,
Nevernight,
yeah.
it's like probably like the most
Yeah.
sexually graphic material I've ever read. That's
Yeah,
not
me
like
too.
erotica. I don't read erotica, but I would imagine like those sex scenes would probably be in erotica.
Yeah,
Do you agree, Andrew?
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's pretty hardcore.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
moving on.
yeah. So
Yes.
you want to talk about the storyline with Aronder and Bronwyn and her people, and basically their interactions with Adar in episode 4 and 5?
Yeah, I know in episode 4, it starts off with the people find out because Arondir returns, so the people find out that trouble is brewing and they got to get out of Dodge quickly. Well, I think they got out of Dodge already, but we find out where they actually land at, and it seems to be some fort of some type of fortification.
It's the Elven fort. It's where Arondir was.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
where they
yeah.
went? Okay.
It's the one that he was guarding. I think they established that in episode 5 at some point.
Quite
Yeah.
clearly. Yeah.
Yeah, so all the people are there at the fort, and we have kind of a revelation about the evil blade.
Because the food
we
is lacking.
Yeah, we kind of find out straight up that the guy who had the blade is like a Sauron worshiper, so to speak, and he is kind of welcoming the evil that's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he talks to Bronwyn's son, and he's effectively sounds like he's trying to recruit him to the dark side.
Yeah, yeah. I was really kind of feeling the vibes of what we were talking about in our predictions during our episode 3 chat about whether Bronwyn's kid, or once I was watching episode 4, whether this old guy, either of them could end up being the Witch King of Angmar, or maybe they end up being Nazgul.
Well,
yeah, I don't think they're noble enough, perhaps, to land those roles yet.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think a big candidate is going to be Halbrand if he's not himself Sauron.
Yeah, because
we were talking about that before. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either.
But also, like, time of war is exactly the time when nobody's get made kings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there becomes a war and everyone gets kicked around, like we know that Isildur, for example, ain't going to end this series as just Isildur.
Of course.
And so it's entirely possible that they've got 9 Nazgul to fill, right? Some people need to be flipping made kings.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a bit of that. But
there could be, like, Halbrand could be made king because we see that, well, in episodes 3, well, basically since Galadriel met since Galadriel found out who Halbrand actually is and how he comes from a noble bloodline, that she's setting him up and pressuring him to become king so he can unite the people of the Southlands against Sauron, so they can go towards this last alliance between elves, men, and dwarves that we see in the prologue of the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, and so one of the things we just need to establish is, again, the good thing about this low men work thing is that it's very much about, like, survival and stuff. So like, they don't have enough food, you got to go get food, okay? Or you're dead. It's that simple. And you get to see that the headstrong Bronwyn has a headstrong son. Who would have guessed? Apple not far from the tree. And she's like, don't go. And of course, he goes. And then they have the scare in the village. But the cool thing about him being in the village is, he has that chance to rediscover the orcs he has. And he uses the blade, doesn't he? And we see that the blade responds to his violence.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That is interesting, suggesting that this is obviously an evil weapon. And then when he hits back, Waldreg, the guy who owned the place, who is already a bit dark, we now know, reveals that he's a Sauron worshiper by saying, I know you've got the hill. like
Mhm.
our families. But why is that in Waldreg's house, right? How come he has the hill? And he was shown as something of a leader in that area. So maybe he is not just a innkeeper. Maybe he does also, like Halbrand, have a auspicious ancestry or an evil ancestry. Maybe he was once, his family line were used to be nobles in service to Sauron.
Yeah, and we see that that these people with Bronwyn, they were supporters of Morgoth before, so they're
their ancestors.
fighting. Yeah, their ancestors were. Yeah, sorry. So they're fighting between, you know, the corruption of their ancestors and trying to go to the side of the good. Similarly to Halbrand, basically by the sounds of it, not necessarily that his ancestors were servants of Morgoth. That hasn't been established, but it sounds like he's done some dark shit. So yeah, that's an interesting parallel.
I would imagine both, Andrew. Like, I think his ancestors almost certainly were servants of Morgoth. He was a man of authority, but also he's like quite clear when he in the fifth episode. Anyway, I've done some bad stuff. Like, and one of the things that's interesting here about this low men storyline that I really like is they're going with the challenge of, you don't know my life, right? If you have to live on the streets, you've got to do some things that maybe you don't have to do if you have a nice family and you get to go to school for free and mommy and daddy give you a car when you turn 20. You know, you've never had to steal food. Good for you. Well, I had to, because if I didn't steal food, my kids, my little sisters starved or whatever. And we see some of this in our own world, don't we? Like some people who come from very hard backgrounds, and it's, well, can you judge me when you don't know where I've walked? And I hope that they keep it a little bit ambiguous, that like you can go both ways with that, because I think that isn't an excuse for everything, but at the same time, it is a valid point. And I hope that they portray it in both ways and then let the audience decide for themselves where they think they fall. Because the idea of, if you're in orc dominated territory, you kind of have to comply a bit or die or get out. And so, and like there's some people who are from maybe very rough areas of inner city New York, for example, or Chicago, or big cities where there is some gang problems, and say, well, if you grew up in gangland, you've kind of got no hope of having all these things that it would be nice to have if I lived in the suburbs of Philadelphia, but I don't. And I think that's a really good plot line to have in, and especially if they can give us some sympathetic characters, but also to have some characters who make bad choices, but believable bad choices. And I really like that part of the storyline. I find characters like her son and Halbrand far more interesting than I do Bronwyn. And I've got to say,
yeah, me too. Yeah,
my interest in the human elf romance thing is almost nil. I'm like,
yeah, I agree. Yeah,
might as well not even be there. But one last thing before I shut up and let Dusty tell us what he's been thinking about this. So one of the things I really liked about that is the scene in the fifth episode with the elf and the boy. So they say, look, if we capitulate to him, we'll live. And if we don't, we have to fight and probably die. And so half of them go, and the boy is like trying to shoot, and the elf gives him some advice, and he's like, why would you give me advice? And the boy puts himself down. He's like we're the bad people that you need to watch. And now it's like proven that we did need watching, because look at us, like we left and went. And he says, yeah, but you didn't. He's like, some of you stayed. So I know that even though you're dangerous and we were watching you because you were dangerous, that actually you've proved yourself by your choices. And, you know, that's like the old Dumbledore phrase, that it's not like our abilities, but our choices that really define us. And that boy, even though he has the freaking hilt, he didn't give it up, but at the same time, he didn't go. And then because of that, he reveals the hilt and gives up his secret. And then we
see that Arondir has seen that symbol before, and he moves across all the bushes and stuff and sees that it's right there by the tower that he was guarding for all this time.
Yeah, and presumably a picture of Morgoth's like conquering the human, because it's a picture of a human being stabbed through with this infinite weapon,
Mhm.
and so presumably this is one of his Morgoth's own weapon or Sauron's. So what about you, Dusty? What did you like, dislike in that particular part?
The statue of the person being cleaved in half, like
Well,
casually.
and everything going on with
That whole storyline.
yeah, everything going
Well,
on
we
with
could talk
Bronwyn and
about
Ronder.
yeah, we could talk about what actually happens when the splinter group arrives at Adar's camp, which is it's a little bit more than what he was going to bargain for. Well, there was no bargain to begin with, but it was very. I don't think he was expecting what was going to be asked of him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that was to prove his loyalty by killing one of his own. I
Yeah,
presume
yeah.
that he did that.
We don't
I
know.
didn't. Yeah, I'm guessing he's bad enough guy that he's gonna do something like
They kind
that.
of make it seem like he did, unless they were just doing a red herring.
It's the
It's
thing.
possible.
The thing that's stupid though is if you're a Dar, why do that? You know, these people have just come over and sworn their loyalty, but they're just at the very beginning. Like, do you really want to be like, yeah, let's see if you'll kill each other? Like, if I was a Dar, like just with a brain, I'd be like, you're all swearing to me? Great. You can be in the front line, go and kill those guys who didn't swear to me. Yeah?
Yeah,
Like, yeah, let's go and fight with the orcs and go take them down. So you can still prove yourself in blood. I'm still going to put you doubtful loyalty people on my front line. But why? Yeah, I think it was a needlessly foolish thing to do, like Darth Vader strangling Captain Needer or something. Like, it's like one of those evil overlord rules. It's like, come on, evil overlords, get a clue about like people. Like,
yeah.
this isn't going to be good. You've now planted doubt in the minds of all those people who've just come over to you because you said, "Come swear yourselves to us, and you'll live." And now they have, and one of them hasn't. So they're thinking, "Oh, you're the bad guys after all." Oh,
Yeah.
maybe I will backstab you and rejoin Bronwyn because she's the hope.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought that was
that reminded me actually. One thing that didn't really make sense to me in episode 5 was when Bronwyn basically kind of seemingly suddenly out of nowhere just decided, no, we don't have any hope. We must bow to Adar. Even though she was one of the, she gave this rousing speech to attempt to inspire her people to go against him. It seemed like she changed her mind kind of suddenly when she was talking to Arondir in that one scene.
yeah.
Well, was her mind changed because later in that scene they look over the precipice and they see like a giant army camping at their footstep?
Yeah,
Maybe that's kind of why she had the second thoughts, possibly.
Okay.
I don't think she really changed her mind. I think she's just like, we're all going to die now. I think she gives up hope. I don't think she says like, yeah, we should go swear to Adar, but she definitely loses hope. She's like, we've made this choice, and actually, I have now realized that it is almost certainly we're all dead.
Oh, okay. So she's just despairing.
I think it was just despair. I don't think she switched.
Okay.
But that's your reading. Your reading is as legit as mine, man. That's just what I read it as, just like, you know, like Theoden in Helm's Deep. Like, he's like, all right, let's fight him, and then he's like, how can there be so much death? We're all going to die. But he still fights. But he's like,
yeah,
I have no hope. And then Aragorn says, ride out with me. You know, we're going to take him, and even if we die in this last ride, we're going to do it. He's like, for death or glory. It's like, yeah. And then of course Gandalf saves the day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that actually reminds me of a theme that I like that they're doing in the show so far. Basically, Tolkien's kind of romanticization of war and the sort of nobility of going to war that we see, especially a lot with the Numenoreans finally agreeing to go to war, and Galadriel being a warmonger and this being a good thing. And But yeah, before we get to that, did you have anything else to say about everything that happens with Adar and Bronwyn and all of those, and Arondir and all of those people in episodes 4 and 5, Dusty?
Yeah, Adar is kind of like an odd character. You know, he's not stereotypical of what we would consider evil until he forced Wahlberg or whatever his name is to kill his colleague there. I think that was probably just an attempt plot-wise to cement, yeah, this guy's really bad. You know, because we were kind of having our doubts. I think our doubts was when Arondir first meets Adar, and it's kind of like ambiguous of what Adar's real goals are. He's like, oh yeah, go tell your people we're coming. It's like, why is he giving them the chance to like either flee or submit themselves or anything like that? So it's kind of out of character for someone who's supposedly working for Sauron to give his enemies advance notice that he's on his way.
Yeah.
Or did
yeah,
you have any? Did you have any reasons why you think he would have done that? Or
absolutely, like I think the stupid you've got to kill your buddy is the stupid thing that's out of character. I think Adar is actually very clever, and when he says, right, I'm going to release you, you go back and tell him. So one, when you go back, you're going to tell them that we got all the elves. So they're going to think, oh, because originally, remember, they were going to the tower in hopes that the elves would be there to defend them. And then they got there and was like, oh, there are no elves. All the elves are gone. And now he comes back and goes, yeah, all the elves have been taken. And the big thing is, give me reinforcements. Why would I fight 20 people when I can fight 10 people and have 10 of the others join my side? It's not only 10 people I don't have to kill, it's 10 extra on my team. So I absolutely think that's in line with Sauron. Maybe not in line with Morgoth, but definitely in line with Sauron. The deceiver. Like that's what Sauron was all about. That's why he wanted to corrupt the rings. That's why he taught ringcraft in the first place. It was like, yeah, I'm going to use other people against them. And obviously one day these people's descendants will be the Easterlings who will fight for Sauron in the Third Age. So I think that is in line with Adar. One other thing is that they have the scene under the sun with the orc, where Adar gets the orc to bare his skin, and the orc explains it feels like it's burning. And then Adar's like, I'm still elf enough that I can enjoy the sun. And he's like, but I know that that's going to go away. So they're again telling us what they've been telling us a bit now in this plot line, that they're going to scar the sky, that Mordor is going to get its overwhelming blackness, where it blots out the sun permanently. And that Adar still has enough elf in him that he's going to miss the sun. But it's interesting that he associates that when that happens, the last bit of elf in him will die too. Like he says, like it'll be the end of the light in me, the last little bit. And I'm kind of almost not looking forward to that, but I know it needs to happen. And so I thought it was really interesting to see that. And I think the hilt is to achieve that. I think that weapon, they're going to eventually get it back. And that is what will create the darkness. And I hope that what we will see is a face heel turn from either the sun or from maybe the king who is coming with the Numenoreans. And then they will take this weapon and actually end up using it for Sauron to blacken the sky and get their orc army to be able to walk at any time because the darkness will be there. That's what I'm
That'd
thinking.
Be cool.
That's what's implied, isn't it? That's what's implied.
Yeah, that'd be cool if it goes there. I also like too that they're kind of increasing one aspect that we were talking about last time, in that we're starting to see get a really good idea actually of where the plot is going, because the characters are getting closer and closer to just all converging in the war against Adar, basically. So that's pretty cool. I can see how they're going to basically all be set up against Adar maybe by the end of the season or so. That'd be cool.
One thing I would say is, I think out of this plot line, I'm most interested in what Adar's backstory would be.
Me too.
So I'm
Yeah.
hoping they will explore that in the season to come, or at least in the seasons to come. I wonder what kind of thing they have crafted for him. Because he doesn't, you wouldn't think, okay, why is an elf working for the dark side? I really want to know, like, how he got to that place.
Hmm. Yeah, and like I was saying, we see in the Silmarillion in particular that there are dark elves who've been corrupted, and there's something like what Arondir is. But it'd be really cool to see his fully fleshed out backstory. Yeah, that'd be really cool. So, do you guys want to go to the storyline about Galadriel and Halbrand, Elendil, Isildur, and the Numenoreans, and how basically for 2 episodes they're deciding, should we go to war? Galadriel's like, yeah, we really fucking should go to war. Let's go to war. And everyone else is hesitant about it. And then, kind of right almost near the end of episode 5, Halbrand finally agrees to go with them. And there's some interesting stuff with how Isildur volunteers to go to war, but Elendil, his dad, won't let him, and then he finally agrees to let him when he saves the life of that guy who actually ended up succeeding in burning down one of the ships, and he saved his life anyway, and he kept his secret that he was trying to sabotage the ships and thus them going to war. So through this act of bravery of Isildur saving this guy's life, that's what convinced Elendil to allow him to go to war. And yeah, all this, all those aspects with the different characters and all of the rulers and people kind of putting pressure on them in different directions is interesting too. And that kind of cool sparring battle between Galadriel and 5 soldiers or so in episode 5, that was really cool too. Yeah.
I have a question. That's something that wasn't super clear to me. Isildur's sister, is she like anti-elf or pro-elf?
Yeah.
Because it seems like there was like a conversation between her and the politician's son. Yeah, and she was trying to kind of manipulate him into talking to her father, his father. So I was wondering, was she pro or anti-elf? That wasn't really clear to me.
I was a little unclear about that too, but yeah, there were kind of some hints that it seemed like she was being that way, but yeah, I'm not really sure. What about you, Tristram?
I think we're meant to see that the Isildur's, Elendil's family in general are not, well, pro-elf is maybe too big a statement, because remember, till about 4 weeks ago, there were no elves to be pro-of, but they're pro, like, the old cultural ideals of Numenor. And so I think she's maybe pro-elf, but I don't think she's pro-Galadriel.
Okay.
And so I think what's happened is she got her big break. She's been reconsidered by the Artisans Guild. She's going to get in, even though that normally she's been rejected. She's going to be given this second chance. And it's established that Isildur keeps giving all the chances because he's a bloke, and blows them all because he wants something else. He wants to go and find his brother in the West. She has been denied and denied, being the girl. It's that theme. The girl is being, trampled, and the guys have it all.
You see that with that guy undermining Bronwyn right after her speech in episode 5 too.
Yeah, and also, what makes Bronwyn this leader, right? She just is.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Like, does no one else in all these people have a thought in their head? Like, Bronwyn's just like, by the way, this, and like they're following her as if she's the queen. It's awesome that she's done that through sheer voice of personality. But in the first episode, we're meant to think that she's a bit of an outsider because of her interest with the elf. Like, the boys taunt her son, oh, your mom's the one who hangs out with the elf, like as if she's this person on the periphery. Clearly not. She's like speaking to them from a tower as if she's, anyway, doesn't matter. I find that hard to believe, but doesn't matter. Suspend your disbelief, Tristram, and move on. But anyway,
yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Clearly got that going on. they've clearly got that going on with Isildur and his sister. They're meant to be a contrast. And so he is like now giving up his dream and saying, I want to go and fight and do this thing for Numenor first. And his dad even calls him on it. He's like, you wanted to bug off to the west. Like, now you want to volunteer and go to war, and now it's the biggest thing. But I think that's quite realistic, because I think Isildur, this whole thing, this jingoism of like, yeah, let's all go to war, and like we'll be remembered as war heroes. That's very much like the British in World War One. Everyone was very excited to go. They all thought the war would be over super quickly. It was all very patriotic and noble, and your country needs you, and all of this. And you were looked very much down on if you didn't want to go. And he says we have more volunteers than we can even take. That was kind of the situation. The largest volunteer army ever raised was the British Expeditionary Force in that war. I
didn't know that.
Yeah, well, because after the World War One, the idea of war is noble and exciting was pretty much dead in the water, right? So I think that's a theme that Tolkien actually played with, and so actually seeing that is really good. And I think she is representing the side that go, like, I don't really care about the politics. I don't want people to go to war. I don't want my dad to go. I don't want my brother to go. Like, I was just as things were getting good for me, my nation's going to go to war and people are going to die. I think she's anti-war, not anti-elf.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, we see that. We see that too when she's talking to, I forget the character's name, but that old dude with the giant beard who has some high level of status, and she's talking to. Yeah, I think so. And he's revealing that, no, it's actually good for us to go to war, even if you don't like elves, because in waging war, we can get all of these resources and profits and that kind of stuff. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, but that wasn't to her. That conversation, he has that with his son, not with her.
Oh, okay. I was confused about that.
But the thing is, it's because his son has the conversation with her, and she's like, talk to him. He won't talk to me. He's never going to pay any attention to me. You talk to him. And because the son just obviously is in love with her, he's like, I totally will. And he talks to his dad, and his dad's like, I'm not going to stop this. And don't try and pretend it's me following an elf. It's nothing to do with that. This war is going to unite all of humankind behind us, and then we're going to be strong enough to go and fight the elves. Which, by the way, foreshadowing, because that's one of the only things we know about Chancellor Farazan, is that he sets the Great Armada against the elves. That's one of the things we know he will one day do.
Okay. I didn't remember or realize that.
That's actually in the lore.
Okay.
So he has to get to that point at some point. So the thing is, like, we know it's obvious he's being set up to be the evil chancellor. Like, they've not even tried to pretend he isn't going to do that. But his son is being shown to be truly caring, right? He's a patriot, but he's an idealist. And so, as you see, even after his dad says, nah, I'm definitely not going to stop this war, it's politically effective, he then tries to sabotage the ships himself and is saved by the girl he fancies brother. Perfect. And then it looks like he and her are going to be the storyline left on Numenor when Isildur and all the other characters that we care about go to Middle-earth. So that suggests that they are still going to show us clips on the island, probably very few, but I imagine it's going to follow those two, and they're going to see the descent of Numenor behind the scenes while the main action happens on Middle-earth.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah. As long as they don't waste too much time there.
Yeah.
We want, when you said the exciting thing is all these lines converging, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Coming together for this big war. And that's what we want to see. And I have a feeling the Harfoots are going to get caught up in the middle of it.
Yeah. Like we were saying before, like the Harfoots, their storyline is kind of boring, but and I would be happy if they just were out of the show once we find out the identity of the stranger and he gets to whatever his destiny is in the upcoming war against the Dar. But it seems like the show creators are just have the idea that no, we have to basically have hobbits in the Lord of the Rings, and yeah, so they're gonna be in here for the rest of the series. Okay, guys, they're no choice. Sorry.
Where would, like, just so you know, we could have, like, the thing I'm thinking is, if I'm the showrunner, I'm like, let's cut a storyline, right? But I still want him to fall. Fine, he's found by Durin's children, and I can have the same effect, right? A young dwarf who's ambitious like Nori, and a stable dwarf who's like her. While their dad's down the mine arguing with his elf friend, they're out on the periphery, and guess what? They see a star fall, and they're like, "Oh, what's this?" And then they have all the things of, is he dangerous or not? But with the dwarves and Elrond, or with flipping Arondir and his humans as well. Like, her son goes out, sees a star fall. What the heck is this?
Yeah.
And you could have a couple of young kids do the same thing, and then we just save a whole load of time and put it into much more interesting stories. That I don't think we should eliminate the starfall. I just think we can do that in any of these other storylines.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, Dusty, what do you think about all the stuff that happens in episode 4 and 5 with the Numenoreans and Galadriel and Halbrand?
Yeah, before we talk about that, Adar is Benjamin Stark.
What do you mean?
The actor that plays Benjamin Stark.
Oh, okay. Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, yeah, now I think about it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that, but yeah.
All right.
That's interesting.
I did enjoy the fight choreography when Galadriel was proving how green these soldiers were in their training.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought she did it pretty gracefully, letting them know that they really needed some more training.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Elendil's like, oh yeah, anybody can touch her or draw blood, you're gonna get promoted, and everybody was like super enthusiastic. And then they mostly got their butts beaten in a very non-violent way.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like Isildur's boy kind of cut her garment and was promoted. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting thing when they were talking about nepotism and how, especially when he got brought back and everybody was claiming at least, hey, he's back because the only reason he's here is because his father's like running the show here. And then his father kind of breaks him down in front of everybody by telling him he has like sweeping duty or something like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
But I'm not, was it his friends? Because it wasn't clear who actually allowed him to get back into duty. Was it his friends who promoted him?
No, what happened is because he rescues the Chancellor's son from the sabotage, his dad said, like, what have you done to earn it? And his friend said the same thing to him, like, what have you done to earn it? Like, you didn't qualify for the Water Guard, like, and he says to his dad, you should put me in because I'm your son. And his dad says that's not good enough. And then at the very end, because he saved this kid's life, remember, this kid is important. He is the Chancellor's son. He is noble born. Remember, the Chancellor is the cousin of the Queen. So these are royal people. He saved this guy's life. And you see his dad look at him and go, you did something. You did something of true worth on your own for good reasons. Okay.
On the surface.
But then when he says, okay, you're in the cavalry, but you're sweeping out the stables, he's also showing him you've still got to go a ways. Like, I've not completely forgotten how much of a wastrel you've been. But that's why he's let him go. It's definitely, if it isn't set out right, it's definitely implied that it's because he saved that lad's life.
Yeah, I'm assuming he lied because the Chancellor's son had dirt that he was trying to stow away on the boat. Was that maybe the reason?
He was going to stow away on the boat because he didn't have permission to go. The son of the Chancellor came to burn the boat because he knew his dad wasn't going to stop the war, but the girl he loves, Isildur's sister, wants to stop the war, and he wants to stop it. So he tries to burn it. And again, we've got the idea here of politics versus pacifism and the interaction between those. And so we see all this happen. The son and the girl he's interested in, Isildur's sister, they've not been convinced that this is a good war. But Isildur has had a chance to prove himself. I also like the way that his friends didn't just forgive him for nothing.
Yeah.
I like,
right. Like you got to get punched twice.
Well, it felt like three. But he's like, but the thing is, they know, like, yeah. And clearly this has happened before. You've just come, and he says, no. You're like, what do you mean? He's like, you want me to just forgive you? And clearly he's going to, because the fact he knows that. The fact he's clearly done it many times before. Maybe you have friends like this who you've had to let off multiple times before. And that, as soon as he said that, I thought, oh, so they are going to be friends again, because you're someone who lets people off for letting you down. You're just more annoyed about it this time than previously.
Yeah, Isildur the slacker.
Well, I think Isildur is meant to be privileged. Like a really example of male white privilege and getting its butt handed to it so he can learn his lesson. But did you hear the line of foreshadowing in episode 5?
What do you got for us?
Which part?
I can't quote it directly. I wish I could. He says to him, I hope one day there's something you'd give up anything for. Something like that.
Yeah.
And obviously one day there will be. It'll be the one freaking ring.
Yeah, good point.
The rest of the future of my house will be bound to its destiny and all that crap. And that was lovely little foreshadowing. Loved that.
He throws it in the river.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry, did you just say Isildur throws it in the river?
Doesn't he?
No, Isildur gets killed by orcs.
Yeah. Isildur will never give it up.
Yeah.
Never.
Oh, so is that the foreshadowing that he'll never give that up?
When the ring will be the thing that he will care about enough to give up everything for it. Whereas his dad will do it for honor, his sister will do it to stop the war, Galadriel will do it to bring down Sauron. Everyone has something that they care enough about, and he doesn't. He's just like, I'm living my life.
I'm trying to say that he has like a weaker character than his dad and sister.
Absolutely, 100%. Yes, I am saying that.
Yeah, okay. I think that it seems clear to me that they're trying to establish that too. Yeah, that is a massive foreshadowing, because he gets killed because he won't give up the ring, and we see in the prologue of Fellowship and the Ring, of course, that he won't give it up even after he's basically destroyed Sauron's physical body, but decides to not cast the ring into the fires of Mount Doom, and then, like we said, gets killed by orcs, and then it ends up in that river, and then it just stays there for a while until it gets picked up by Gollum.
Yeah, because
go ahead.
The line, the hearts of men are easily corrupted.
Yes, the hearts of men are easily corrupted.
Who said that?
Galadriel.
Okay. I'm about Galadriel too. Throughout the show, she has been shown not to be a very diplomatic figure. Has like zero skills when it comes to politicking, except for this one moment in episode 5 where she basically convinces Halbrand to pick up the reins of his title and come to war with them. One of the things why this seems effective, at least when she does it, is Galadriel is an extremely guarded individual. And when she has this conversation with Halbrand, she basically lays all of her cards on the table. She becomes very open about her motivations and why she's doing what she's doing. And she even tells him, like, she's not even completely sure about her own motivations.
Yeah.
It's just that's what she does. That's what I think the question is, why do you do what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
And she basically says it's because I have to. Like
I can't
like she
stop.
doesn't know a life where that obligation is not there.
Yeah.
At least for now.
I like that where she said, like, he asked her, why are you doing this? And she said, because I can't stop. And it seems like it's clear that they're establishing that she has some sort of PTSD or something like that, in that she's like addicted to war and she can't see any other life for herself. So yeah, it would be interesting, like you were mentioning in one of our previous episodes, Tristram, if it ends up being the case that Galadriel and Elrond kind of switch roles so that they're more similar to their characters in the Lord of the Rings, and that she becomes more of a sort of a diplomat, or just, one of the noble people and less of a warrior, and he ends up becoming more of a warrior and fighting in that last alliance between elves, men, and dwarves in the prologue of Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, and I agree. I think she does show herself as lacking diplomatic. One of my favorite scenes in episode 4 was going to be one of my least favorite scenes, and it's where she basically punks the queen, and she's like, "You have to do this, and you have to do that, and you're like not even in control of your own nation. I'll do this myself." And the queen's like, "Oh, really?" Throws her in prison. I'm like, yes. Because like I play D&D, and often the player characters, they know that they're sitting around a table with me. So they know I don't really want to kill them off. And so they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I just punked the king." I walk right up to him and I go, "You're an idiot. You're like a coward." And I'm like, "But you just wouldn't do that." And like, "Yeah, but my character does." I'm like, "Right, the king flipping kills you, but you can't." He's like, "Oh, not if it's some 14-year-old kid's character." You're like, "Oh, I don't want to destroy this kid." And so, like, I think that's like Galadriel there. It was like some D&D player who's like, "You're not going to stop my character because I'm important to the plot." And then the queen's just like, "I'm not putting up with your crap. Get in jail." That was fun. That was fun. I did enjoy that. And so I do think that Galadriel's character is unlikable, but deliberately so. I think Isildur's character is unlikable, but at least it's deliberate. He is meant to be a wishy-washy weak character that we get to like more and more and more as he starts to take on responsibility and become the prince he can become. And then he throws it all away at the end of the series when he takes the ring. And if they can make us, one of the things that I will judge this series on is if it can make me feel the tragedy of Isildur. Because Isildur should be a tragedy. It should feel like Othello. It should feel like Romeo and Juliet. Like you want it to work out, and it should work out, and it doesn't work out. And if they can pull that off, if the actor can pull it off, if the screenwriters can pull that off, that will be one of the legacies of this show. And one of the things that will give it a chance of being something that people rewatch regularly. Because at the moment, there's a chance that this show will come, it'll be watched once, and it will go. But if you think about the Lord of the Rings trilogy, there's people who watch that and have rewatched it time and time and time again. I'm one of those people.
Me too.
Yeah. That's because it is truly epic, right? It is truly worthy of the Oscars that it won. It is excellent storytelling and a film masterpiece. If they want this to be something like when someone goes, right, I'm going to do a Lord of the Rings marathon, Rings of Power series, then The Hobbit, then The Lord of the Rings. If they want it to work like that it's not just a thing that fades into obscurity after a couple of years, the moment it stops airing, then they need to give it these deep moments. Like they need to pay off the battle, the big battle where the elves and men face Sauron. They need to pay off Isildur's fall and make us feel that. Just one thing before I go off this thing is my favorite like visual piece was her dream of the death of Numenor.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was outstandingly horrific and beautiful and a CGI masterclass. Whoever those guys are who sit behind computers and make that happen, they do good work.
They do.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty. I was like, damn, this has to be a dream, right? And I was like, okay, it's a
Yeah.
dream.
But we're going to see that. That's going to happen in this.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
in series
that does
one,
happen.
but that's going to happen in Rings of Power for sure.
Yeah, because that happens before, at
Before
least
the
before
last battle.
Sauron gets his finger chopped off.
Indeed. Numenor has to sink beneath the waves first.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That'll
that's
be
some-
epic. That's
some
what. That's
true
one
foreshadowing.
thing. That's one of my complaints about the show in general. Why I don't like it as much as the Lord of the Rings movies and even the Hobbit movies is it doesn't have that sense, that much of a sense of epicness. I think as the movies do.
If they do the combination thing that we're all seeing, like if they can pull it all together in a satisfying way, it will feel more epic. If they can get to a big battle, and especially if they can do something like have a almost Empire Strikes Back like season one, like if they can have it end with maybe the rise of the shadow, like Adar gets the weapon and so they survive, but then he uses the weapon in the final climax of the final episode of series one and brings the shadow over Mordor. That could be creepy, powerful. People like, oh my goodness, you don't dare end it on a downer, do you? And like, yes, we do, because we have so much money, we know you're coming back. And then they're like, that would be cool. And it would be remembered for daring to end an episode in that way, a series. And then we could see more. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see them do something of that nature.
Yeah, that'd be cool for sure.
It'd be just different. It'd be different.
Yeah.
I think one of my problems with the show is the prequel problem. It's like, I know Galadriel can't die. I know Durin can't die. And not only can't they die, like, I'm not even worried that Galadriel's going to remain a prick forever, because I know she doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, I already know her character arc is going to get better. I know that she's going to fall in love. I know that she's going to one day become this beautiful, peaceful woman who is completely at peace with herself, and eventually will even be at peace with her ambition after confronting Frodo and going to the West. So it's just like, I'm struggling to really invest in that actress and in that character. Whereas some of these others, like Halbrand, I find much more engaging. Bronwyn's son is very engaging. Like, I don't think he's brilliantly acted, but I love his plot line.
Yeah.
I think it's because we don't know what's going to happen with these people.
Yeah. I really like the actor who plays Galadriel, her acting job, partially because I think she looks and sounds really similar to Cate Blanchett.
Yeah.
Her performance as Galadriel in the Lord of the Rings
Agreed.
movies. But yeah, in terms of the plot, I agree that her performance is what makes her storyline the most compelling to me. But yeah, there definitely is way more suspense with characters like Halbrand and like Bronwyn's son, for example, for sure. And yeah, one of the aspects of the plot that I'm the most excited about now is what you were talking about, Dusty, in terms of hoping to see more of Adar's backstory.
Yeah, I want to see what drove that character to the dark side. I don't know. Maybe they'll make a whole new series like they did with Star Wars.
All I'm saying is, let's hope it's not that his wife was going to die and he was going for immortality. Because if it is, it's not going to be good. People are going to get hurt.
Yeah, true.
If he ends up having a mentor called Darth Plagueis the Wise, I'm going to head
come to the dark side.
And if he was convinced during an opera, even more so.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I like that we got to hear throughout the episode, like some lore bits at least from the greater lore. Like we got the mention of Manwë and some of like the Valar. I was like, oh cool. Or at least they're incorporating some of this.
Absolutely.
Into the show, like the older stuff, because that stuff they didn't touch in any of the movies. They didn't touch that in The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. They didn't touch any of that. But it looks like they're kind of embracing like really nerdy, obscure things that nobody would know outside of people who've read like the Silmarillion and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that they're doing that too.
And they did a few things like that. Like when they did the trees, they did that, and when they did the elf versus the Balrog, they did that, and they had another thing like that. They had a couple of those scenes where they kind of like go away from the action deliberately, like deliberately to make it myth-like, which I like. What did you think of them doing this? What do you think about their continuing to use songs?
I like that actually. I mean, I was one of those people. I was one of those people that was never a big fan of the songs in Tolkien's work, but I know that really is in keeping with Tolkien and really important for his mythology, like you were mentioning, like how song created Middle Earth. So I do like that they're including that, even though because it's so in keeping with Tolkien.
Well, my first experience with Tolkien's work was like the Rankin Bass cartoons.
So those animated ones in the 70s or something like that.
Yeah, so basically I was already into they sing songs and stuff in the story. Like that wasn't a thing that bothered me. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. They got their little songs. It's kind of like a Disney movie. But yeah, the whole song thing never bothered me because my first introduction to Tolkien were those Rankin Bass cartoons.
Right.
So I was like, oh, yeah, that's cool that they're kind of harkening back to that. But even though it's like something that was kind of integral to the work in the beginning, they just kind of stripped it out of the movies and stuff.
Do you know what my first introduction was? Was the Bakshi cartoon.
Oh, that horrible thing.
You see, the thing is, I love it. Like, for me, in many ways, one of the reasons I was disappointed at first with a bit of the Fellowship of the Ring is that Sam is not, I don't think he's super like Sam. I think Sam I love bumbling Sam. But anyway, and I love my image of Legolas will always be that Legolas.
From the Bakshi movie?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's really weird.
It is weird. It's like, for most of it, it's like typical 2D cartoon. And then for some of it, they tried this new animation they were trying that makes it look kind of almost like realistic, but it isn't.
Yeah, it's like rotoscoping, the video Aha Take on Me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they kind of use that type of like drawing over real pictures effect.
But one of the things that's really interesting is the music in that. That is still like when the Ride of the Rohirrim happens in like the Two Towers. Like I do not find it as satisfying as the version in the Bakshi cartoon.
Oh, really? Wow.
You watch it; it's worth 2 hours of your life, I tell you. And basically, they do half of the Two Towers and all the Fellowship of the Ring, but it wasn't successful enough to do the second movie, which would have done the other half of the Two Towers and Return of the King. So it ends at Helm's Deep. But the battle at Helm's Deep, when the orcs hear the horns and then they ride in and they just chase them down and slaughter them, it is like hallelujah. It's everything a 9-year-old boy wants to see in a movie. And I was like, yeah, Gandalf, you cut those suckers down.
Yeah.
And in some ways, that movie is more loyal to the books than Jackson's.
Yeah. Yeah, they did stick fairly closely to the books, but there are definitely some added and invented things sometimes, and they're moving characters and especially in the Hobbit movies, they're kind of inventing characters and storylines and stuff like that.
The Hobbit movies.
Yeah.
There's a reason I don't rewatch.
I'm a defender of them because I have eliminated the theatrical ones from my mind and only watch the extended editions. So that's the same thing. That's the same thing I always do with the Lord of the Rings movies now. So that's why
I have not I haven't seen the extended Hobbits. So do they give Bjorn more than 10 seconds at the last battle in the extended edition?
They give him, yeah, they give him like a few minutes instead. Not
Okay,
that
because
much more, but
that's kind of what pissed me off about the Hobbit movie. You see Bjorn come in for like 10 seconds and that's it. I
yeah,
was like, really? The guy that saves the day. They gave him 10
yeah.
seconds.
And well, one thing they do in the extended edition of the Battle of the Five Armies, which I think is really cool, is they have the dwarves do this whole awesome action sequence where they're on this sort of sled thing where they have a massive crossbow turret and they're going down this like frozen river and shooting orcs and trolls and that kind of shit. That whole part is really cool.
Is it as cool as the part where they're like rolling up like balls and bouncing around and trying to escape the elves and barrels
Oh yeah,
or whatever the
they
hell
really
they're doing?
embellished that in the first Hobbit movie. I thought that was totally unrealistic, but it kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought like even just the regular theatrical version, I felt were like really dragged out. So I'm kind of surprised on extended editions because it must be even more dragged out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even I am a defender of them, but I still like the Lord of the Rings movies a lot more.
Yeah. There's just there is good moments in them, but the just sheer story quality of the Lord of the Rings is just on a different level.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
But anyway, anything else wanted to say about these episodes?
Yeah, I think. I think we pretty much covered everything I wanted to comment on and more. What about you guys?
I am on board. I am excited to see what's coming next. I think the trajectory so far is pretty good. I'm not worried at this point. I don't see anything that's happened so far that has me concerned in such a way that upsets me. So everything I think looks pretty good, pretty excited. I'm excited for the next episode. I can see they're building up to a climax.
Yeah.
Climax seems to be the point in which these humans are going to do battle with the orcs.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So
I
I'm
agree.
excited to see what happens there. That seems going to be like the connective tissue, at least between Arondir and Bronwyn's group and possibly Halbrand and Galadriel's group.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're going to see how that plays out. I like that their forces got reduced. So it's like, they're only going out with 3 ships instead of 5.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like there were a lot of orcs, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Remember, the key thing is that like what they're hoping is to unite the men of the Southlands, right? They're not actually intending for Numenor to win this fight. They're hoping that when they get there, they can kind of train and mobilize and invigorate the South behind Halbrand. That's the plan. But you know, one of the things that Galadriel's saying is that like one of the reasons maybe that the elves need to get rid of her is because she had some of the darkness that she's been fighting so long herself inside her. And so I'd like to see Adar try and corrupt her. And as an elf,
yeah, that'd be cool.
That could be good. Like to say, look, I was like you. Like we don't know his backstory, but you know, I was like you. I used to fight more often, and then I realized that I had more in common with him than against him, or something like that. Like actually, it's Gilgalad and all them that you want to get rid of. And you know, remember how you felt when you could have gone to heaven and you thought, I don't want this peace. It's like exactly. You're such damaged goods. The only place for you now is with us. And then for her to turn her back on that and find her true self will be great. I definitely think that, like you said, Andrew, that one of the things I want it to do is I want it to feel a bit more epic. And I think that if they pull off this combination of storylines towards a big battle, I think that will help it feel that way. I want to feel I mean, maybe it's not possible for me to feel something like I felt during Endgame, but I want to feel something like that. Like, oh, it's coming together. It's momentous. It's intense. There's high stakes, and yeah, I want to feel that intensity. One of the things I did recently is I compared some of the different TV series I've been watching recently, and like I'm very disappointed. For example, the TV series She-Hulk. I think it's very, very poor.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
I didn't even bother watching that because just for the basic concept, She-Hulk, attorney at law, I so don't care
but
at all.
the problem is they haven't even
Well,
really.
Daredevil is an attorney at law, but that
Yeah.
was actually good.
Oh yeah, oh, okay.
The Daredevil series was excellent, but
Yeah, I like that.
the problem is.
Oh, I thought you were saying, Dusty, that Daredevil is in She-Hulk.
Oh, I don't even know. I haven't seen it.
He has a
okay.
cameo.
Oh,
but,
yes.
but the key point I'm saying is that it doesn't do even what it's supposed to do well. And it made me talk about things like stakes. What are the stakes? You know, what is going to make me invest? And the stakes don't have to be the end of the world to be big stakes.
Mm-hmm.
I often think of like film, like the TV series Hawkeye. Now, people did or did not like Hawkeye. I really enjoyed the Hawkeye series, but the stakes in Hawkeye are not the end of the world, not even close. Like no one's even going to get nuked, right? It's like the stakes are a few lives, like in a particular area, but those lives are important. They feel important. The behavior of these people and whether or not they get to be who they want to be and whether or not they get to live is important. They make the fact of will he get home so he can watch Christmas movies with his kids feel important. And like that's what I need from this show. I need it to make me feel that Numenor dying or not dying is important. To make me feel like I should be really worried about that kid at the end who's going to get killed for proving of loyalty, but I'm not really. I'm just kind of like, oh, it's a bit stupid that they're doing that. Adari should be smarter than this. I don't feel the stakes, and I want to. I want to feel those stakes a bit, well, just more than I do at the moment, and that's what I'm hoping that as these storylines come together, that's gonna help me really feel invested in what's happening. It's a little sad that like it's hard for them to do that because I already know that I kind of want the bad guys to win the first round because I want them to fit with my storyline, so it's making it hard for me to emotionally connect like I would, but I still think it's possible. I like, for example, when I watched Revenge of the Sith, which lots of people would say, prequel trilogy, we don't like him or whatever. But when Obi-Wan turns, he says, "You were my brother, Anakin." Like I felt that. And when Anakin goes, "I hate you," after having been like saying only a bit earlier, like you're the closest thing I have to a father. And you think, yeah, like people can say what they like about those two actors and about the prequel trilogy, but they, for me, made me feel that they had a real relationship and it was destroyed by what happened. I need something like that from the Rings of Power, even though I've got the prequel problem. And up to now, I haven't had that.
Yeah, well said. I agree. And yeah, I think I might have said this when we were offline before last time, but this is definitely a hot take for Star Wars nerds. Well, partially a hot take, I guess. I'm not a fan of the Phantom Menace, but I actually like Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith more than Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back. I think those were pretty well executed, even though there are definitely some cheesy aspects to them.
All I'm going to say is, so speaketh a young man. No, and that's not a criticism. What I'm saying is that is, if you can, I think that could be completely legit. But it's just interesting that culturally it seems that anyone over the age of 40 can't bring themselves to say that, no matter what they think.
Yeah.
Because you remember, it's nostalgia, right? you
Yeah,
remember seeing that Star Destroyer coming overhead and going, "What the crap? That's amazing!"
yeah,
And
yeah,
like when you came along, when you were like in your film watching era, the prequels were just coming out, and you were like,
yeah.
you were
Well,
there.
actually, my dad showed us the original Star Wars movies, my brother and I, when we were little kids before the prequels came out. So
Yeah.
we did watch those first, but we still watched all the prequel movies in the theaters when they came
Mhm.
out too.
Yeah, but
But
what sort of
yeah.
age were you, man? Like ish.
Oh, I'd say I was. You mean when the prequels came out?
Yeah.
Oh, the first one came out somewhere around 2000, I think,
Yeah,
right?
99, 2000,
Yeah, so
99.
I was somewhere around 10.
You see, and so when you're a 10-year-old, right, and you watch the Empire Strikes Back and Luke fights the Wampa and he goes,
Mm.
ugh. And then the same 10-year-old goes in and watches Darth Maul take on Ewan McGregor and Qui-Gon Jinn. Yeah, I'm going to tell you which film the 10-year-old's going to like more.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
No, for like no doubt, right? And only the most diehard fan would say that the lightsaber fights in the original trilogy were anything like the quality of what we get in the prequels.
Of course.
They
Yeah.
weren't. They weren't. And
Yeah.
so, but it's interesting that there's a new generation now. So, like my 20 to 35-year-old mates are all prequel guys. They like the prequels. I find they don't hate them. But then there's a new generation now, and a lot of them really, really like the new stuff, the sequels. And there's people who are like, no, it is treachery to like the sequels. And I'm like, it's just generational. You just got to, and if they had an experience with that film, they had an experience with that film. And that's what this series has to fight with, is the people who had a huge experience with the Peter Jackson trilogy or had a huge experience with the books, and that's getting in the way of them enjoying this series.
I don't like
Yeah, my
the Rings of
favorite.
Power. The
Oh.
Rings of Power series seems kind of like there seems to be widespread hatred of it to me.
I think there's just loud hatred. I don't think
Okay.
it's widespread. It is the number one show on Amazon.
Okay.
It is their highest popularity show, but it has its problems for sure. But it's I don't think it's as widely hated as its extremely vocal critics would have us believe.
That's entirely possible. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I was
also
gonna say,
go ahead.
my favorite part of the prequel trilogy is when Mace Windu cuts off Jango Fett's head.
That was pretty cool.
It was badass.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he does it with like zero effort.
Yeah.
This party is over.
Yeah, yeah. Like you were saying, Tristram, all the lightsaber battles in the prequel trilogy are really awesome for sure. But I was
Well, I also
just
like,
thinking.
I definitely like. I can't say I didn't like the Yoda fight versus Dooku fight. I know there were a lot of people complaining about it, but I actually liked it.
Yeah, it's way cooler when he's like bouncing off of walls and doing flips and shit than it is when he's just a puppet and he doesn't even have any lightsaber battles.
Anyway, you were saying, Andrew, and you kept getting cut off.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking when you reference the Marvel superhero shows, I was telling you, Dusty, since I finally started watching The Boys, that's definitely by far my favorite superhero shows, to the point that it probably almost ruins other superhero shows for me. Although I still will watch most, at least, of the Marvel shows, even though I haven't seen most of them. But I was thinking of that in terms of stakes. You were talking about how in the Rings of Power, that it doesn't have those epic stakes. It doesn't have that feeling, at least, of epic stakes. And you don't even have to necessarily actually have them. You just have to have the feeling. But in The Boys, they flip the whole superhero theme on its head, and the superheroes are the biggest threat. Like, these superheroes could just massacre everyone in the entire world easily. And the protagonists in the show are the people who are trying to kill the superheroes. So yeah, The Boys is the best superhero show.
I've heard that
It's a
said.
grimdark superhero
Yeah,
show.
very grimdark superhero show. Yeah.
One of the things about Grimdark, though, and one of the things I've heard about The Boys is it feels very real, right? If
Yeah.
people legitimately had superpowers, that's probably what they would do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they probably
Lots of
wouldn't go around.
narcissistic personalities.
Well, the
Definitely.
Thing is,
Definitely.
well,
Yeah.
the thing is, we're all a little bit narcissistic, aren't we? We just try and keep it under control.
Mm-hmm.
But all humans, we are a little bit self-interested. That's like why we
Yeah.
insist on being paid for our work.
Well, and one theme that you see in The Boys is that it turns out that the superheroes have been like their basically with a drug, their genes have been altered and they've been like groomed and trained throughout their whole childhood to become superheroes. So it's like when they actually become superheroes, it's just like they're getting what's coming to them, and 99% of them end up being just manipulative psychopaths.
But the thing is, like, if you were legitimately super fast, super strong, super invulnerable, like, do you think someone like that, most human beings would legitimately do that for free in their time off?
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense that you would want to get paid a lot of money
Yeah.
and live in this giant penthouse and literally see yourselves as gods in comparison to humans.
You would, like, the thing is, I don't have any of those cool abilities, but the few abilities I have, I expect to be paid for them.
Right.
So, like, I could totally see someone going, my goodness, I am like the fastest person alive. I should benefit from this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I should. Like, why shouldn't I? And it like, yeah. Anyway, we're not talking about The Boys. But
yeah. We
the
went
idea
on
is,
to Star Wars and
this is
superhero
not
shows.
grimdark.
Yeah.
This is not grimdark, and I'm delighted that it's not grimdark. It's not Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I'm delighted it's not. If it's gonna be itself, it needs to pay off on its mythology, and that's why I'm glad they have tried to do things like the slightly different language and the music and things like that, because it needs to differentiate itself in this world of media, and I think it is
Certainly.
doing that to an extent. So Anyway, am I enjoying it? I absolutely am. I think it's one of the better shows that I'm watching. The production quality is excellent. The acting on the whole is either good or very good. And yeah, I think some of the plot work could be slightly improved. And I think some of the writing could be slightly improved. But on the whole, solid show, very enjoyable.
Yeah.
And getting better, not getting worse, getting better. The trajectory is good.
Certainly, yeah. I remember, like, when we were talking about the first two episodes in particular, my general sentiment was, "Oh, this is so boring." And then I finally got hooked into it at least a little bit with episode 3. So yeah, I like where they're going with it now too. Yeah. So yeah. All right. So yeah, I guess we've been talking about these episodes for long enough. So thanks for talking with me about these episodes, guys. Always very fun. And yeah, let's reconvene next week or the week after that to talk about either episode 6 or episode 6 and 7, if that's cool with you guys.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed our discussion. Let us know your thoughts about the show in the comments. Yes, I know some aspects of it suck, but there are some interesting aspects of it too. And yes, click that like button, share this everywhere, subscribe to the channel, click that bell to be notified when I come out with new videos. Check out the chats that Dusty and I have been doing with our buddy Chris about the new House of the Dragon show as well. And we'll either tomorrow or next week, we'll be talking about the next episode or two, hopefully too. And yeah, like I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all, and groove is in the heart, and fantasy is awesome, and Lord of the Rings in particular. And check out the new Rings of Power show. Watch all the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies and read all of the books. They're awesome. All right. And oh yeah, check out my Patreon page. Link is in the description of the video as always. If you give me $10 a month, you can vote on future topics, books, and movies that I discuss by myself and with others. And yeah, anything else you guys want to say before we end it there?
Nope. It's all good.
Yeah, I'll post a deerskin review either today or tomorrow.
Right, that really weird fantasy book that we both read. Yeah. And also check out Dusty's channel for similar fantasy chats that we've done, and we've been cross-posting these chats about Lord of the Rings and House of the Dragon on his channel as well. So check out that and all of our other awesome chats about books and movies and whatnot. And yeah, thanks again, guys. Thanks again for everyone watching, and adios until next time.
All right, take it easy.